Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Pluribus episode 5, and off the bat, I have to say, I have to rip the Band-Aid off. This had to have been my least favorite episode of the show. I'm not saying that it was a bad episode, because it wasn't. It was just a bottle episode. It gave me very, very, very strong The Fly episode vibes from Breaking Bad. I don't know how else to describe it, but this episode to me just felt very slow, and I know that there was some discoveries in the episode, but for the most part, it was just Carol being bored in her house, not knowing what to do after everyone left, which I do think was a little bit interesting. I'd say the most thought-provoking this episode got for me was in the beginning, because it was interesting to see the hive mind themselves start to, resist Carol. I had a feeling that's exactly how that was going to go. Like, I didn't think they were going to be happy with what Carol did, obviously, and we saw that pretty early on with the way everyone just kind of like avoided her, and after they cried, they just separated themselves. And the coolest part of this episode was I'm like 99% sure that was Patrick Fabian, who was the voicemail for the hive mind. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't stay for the credits, so if that's true, I will, if I see it, I will put something here on screen to confirm that. But my God, man, that was the best little thing. I was like, wait a minute, Howard Hamlin? Isn't this supposed to be the same universe? Whatever, and I'm joking, but seriously, that was the coolest thing for me. And then outside of that, this episode just, it was interesting for sure to see them react the way they did, because I thought they weren't capable of being even standoffish. I know Patrick Fabian, I think it's Patrick Fabian, I don't know who it was, but I know the voice that sounded like Patrick Fabian was basically saying they still feel the same way about Carol, they just need a little bit of space. So it was fascinating to see that mean that everyone leaves, like completely everyone leaves. I thought that was really interesting, and I'm wondering what that interaction is going to be with Zosha. I have to say, though, the reason I think I dislike this episode the most is the first four episodes of this show were just dynamite so far. It was like one after the other, and like the wait to go a full week was nearly impossible. But I'm glad they bumped this one up, because honestly, I didn't want to wait a full week. I would have been pissed if I waited a full week for this episode. Again, not to say that it's bad. It's just not. It's just the momentum completely came screeching to a halt in this episode. But it was, I do think, for the most part, important narratively. Like, it was definitely important to slow the pace down and settle on this and see how Carol interacts. But then again, Carol didn't really have a lot of learning, at least not until the cliffhanger, or not learn. She didn't even learn in the cliffhanger at the end, but something happens at the end. But for the most part, it was just Carol just going about her business. Dogs, wolves, coyotes, I'm not sure which they were. I'm going to guess wolves. I don't know. Again, you guys know I'm not the smartest when it comes to these things. Whatever. One of those creatures started coming, and one of the things that I thought was the most fascinating about that is they deliberately were going to Helen's grave. Maybe it's for food, but it seems suspiciously targeted for it to just be food. Do you know what I mean? That was something that stood out to me in this episode, and it made me wonder if there is more to it. Now, I have to take it to the notes, because I do have a little bit of stuff that I wanted to address in there. Outside of that, the only thing that had me thinking this entire episode was, am I on Carol's side or am I not? And it's something I haven't addressed in any of my reviews or anything. And I think it's because this episode was a little slower, it gave me time to think about it. And henceforth, it's giving me time to talk about it in this video. And the answer is pretty difficult, because I was talking to this with my friends over the weekend who saw this episode, who saw the last episode when we were talking about the show. In one respect, obviously, you want your individuality, so you should be fighting like hell to get that back. So for that, I'm 100% on Carol's side. I mean, if the choices were to become a hive mind and lose your individuality, or try to fight to gain it, I'm going to go for trying to fight to gain it back 100% of the time, for sure. But also, like, if I were to do that, I'd want to at least take advantage of this situation a little bit. I'd want to do a lot of crazy things I would never have the ability to do in my life while I'm in this state. I'm sure it's hard, right? Carol went through a lot because Carol lost Helen in this process, and it's also scary being 13 people alone. But as soon as you start to talk to them, you get a little bit comfortable around Zosha and all of that stuff. Wouldn't you want to take advantage of it? Like, wouldn't you want to just have a little bit of fun with it before you then go insane? Like, we were talking about this, and I'm not going to say the exact words we were saying in the conversation, but essentially it was, would you want to keep living this way or would you not? And honestly, it's like death on both ends, right? You could either be alone and then, be so, want to end it that way, or you could want to end it by joining these people and losing your individuality. So in like Carol's mind, you're kind of fucked both ways unless you try to stop it, right? Because the fun will run out eventually. The fun is just going to eventually run. You could do all the things in the world. You could fly Air Force One. You could have as many hive mind prostitutes as you want. You could go to Disney in one day and then go to Disney California and Disney Tokyo, like all in one day. You know what I mean? Like, you could do whatever the hell you want. And I don't know why I named Disney as the example, but the point I'm making is you could only do all of what you want for so long before it becomes, okay, this is getting old and I am desperately alone. How am I going to do this? But also in the same vein, it's kind of Carol's fault because Carol hasn't asked questions and like tried to get to know these things. And I feel like they're still deliberately not telling us that and not showing us that on purpose. I don't know if it's something we're going to get this season. I really don't. And I think on one hand, it's kind of good to leave that to interpretation. But on the other hand, I desperately want it because it feels like such a missing link in the show. So while I'm on Carol's side, like save humanity, save what makes us individual, I'm also like not for the way she's going about this. She's deliberately almost going about everything to avoid asking questions. She doesn't want to learn about these things. She doesn't even want to attempt to understand it. She just wants her way or the highway. And I get it. She's an author, right? Like, obviously, as an author, you care so much about public expression. You're not going to want to know what it's like to not have that public expression anymore. I understand that. But, like, wouldn't you want to know? You're a fucking publicist. Like, you write. For, like, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to learn more about what this is? That's the part that's perplexing to me, and that's the part that I keep going back to. So while this episode I thought was a little bit boring, the whole time I was watching it just thinking that. And again, it's a Vince Gilligan show, so the cinematography, the creativity was top notch. You can't blame it for that. It was all fantastic. Like, it genuinely was. I found it to be boring. That's what it comes down to. And I'm also really interested to see where this is going to go in the end now with that ending, where the whole time she's discovering that in the bags is this powdery stuff. And now I'm wondering, my theory is essentially that powdery stuff, because it's getting made in that facility, that powdery stuff is what Carol discovered? Is that the bodies of the people that they are then drinking and consuming? Because when she goes to that plant at the end, she sees something frozen in bags. And we do know that all of the dead bodies from there, the 800 million dead bodies, we do know that they all took them somewhere. Did they take them to these freezers so that they could essentially eat them or like consume their bodies? Because why else would they be stored there in the same plant where they're making this stuff? It's very interesting to me. That is going to be an interesting reveal. It's just, to me, it's a shame that it took so long for that reveal to get there. Again, because I know there's going to be some people in the comments ripping me for not liking this episode, but it's not really that I didn't like this episode. It just was I think my problem was it was such a change of pace for the 5th episode of a new show that otherwise had dynamite momentum. So that's what threw me off a little bit. I would never say this is a bad episode. I just did not like this as much as the rest, and it was pretty boring to me. But again, it's not the end of the world to have that experience because, look, in the end of the day, it also was thought-provoking for me. I enjoyed wondering, but I wanted so many more answers. I want to know what happens to Zosha now. Are they going to interact ever again? And I know the hive mind themselves is Zosha, so everyone that was talking to Carol, that's all Zosha too. But like Zosha and Carol seem to have this like specific dynamic that I want to keep watching. So without her and without that dynamic itself, it was very, very hard to follow. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I did still like this show. I did enjoy it, but I mean, this episode, but it just wasn't the same. Is this a hindrance to the season? Not at all, because I think it's okay to have slow episodes. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts. Wasn't the biggest fan of this one, but it wasn't a bad episode. If I had to rank it, I'd give it like a 7, maybe, because I still think the cinematography is great. It's still entertaining to watch. Like, I'm enjoying watching it, even if it's like on the boring end of it. So yeah, there's that. Would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Can't wait for the next episode. And with all that out of the way, I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Special shout out to our brand new members. Seriously, it helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. But if you'd like to become a brand new member, the link to do so is right after the subscribe button. It will change to a join button. You could also find it linked in the description right under the like button.